Hello and welcome to an unorthodox Total Soccer show. My name is Daryl Grove and sitting across the carpet from me, it's Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hey buddy, how you doing?
Good. So we should let our listeners know where we are, right? We're not in the studio. We are in an AirBnb in Philadelphia with a bunch of athletic writers.
Yep.
It's like a big nerd soccer frat house.
Pretty much.
We're keeping our voices down a little bit because not everybody's awake just yet.
Yes, this is true. Recording the day after the USA beat Bolivia, not Panama. I wish it was Panama. Instead Bolivia, 3-0.
So USA 3, Bolivia 0. We haven't done our full deep rewatch, but we did. I paid a lot of attention while we were at the game, if that's fair, because there was a lot to enjoy.
There was.
Right? It was an enjoyable evening of soccer. Let's start there.
It was indeed. It's the first in a while, I feel like, that we got to see the U.S. come out, look dominant, look confident, look calm on the ball, score some goals. Everybody seemed happy. The crowd seemed happy. The press seemed happy. All around, it was a happy vibe with the caveat of against Bolivia's probably C team.
Yeah, so what we understand is that this is Bolivia's domestic team, but without choosing the players from the top end of the table.
Yes,
right? So it's like
exactly.
the bottom half of Bolivian domestic soccer.
And
it kind of showed in many places.
I think their coach said after the game that basically anybody who was playing a meaningful game or had the chance of playing a meaningful game wasn't called into this one. So yeah, it was basically everybody who was like eliminated from title contention within the Bolivian league. They were in this game.
So it's worth setting that as a baseline, because we're going to get kind of excited about what we saw, because it was, teenagers, exciting stuff. Sargent, Weah both scored. But it's always worth remembering that that's who they were playing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But I would say, in hindsight, it's maybe the perfect opposition. Just to give these kids a run out against grown men, but just maybe not the highest standard of grown men.
Yes, I agree with you as long as expectations remain where they probably should be. If we are suddenly expecting Timothy Weah and Josh Sargent to humiliate opposition and score goals every single game, then we're setting ourselves up to be a little bit disappointed. If anything, I would
still struggle against Rafael Varane.
Yeah, a little bit. It reminds me a little bit of like
we might find out next week.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit after the 2010 World Cup when the U.S. played South Africa and we had a bunch of new faces and everybody was very excited and people were scoring and people were young, and then some of those faces maybe didn't reach that next level.
Why you took about Juan Agudelo like that?
So it's just worth remembering that like they can have an exciting start.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily mean that they're always going to be doing that.
All right, but let's get excited about what we saw last night. Okay. I've got to say the most exciting thing I saw was Weston McKennie in central midfield.
Yeah.
So the US started off in this 4-1-4-1 shape. They pressurised Bolivia when Bolivia had the ball. And for me, it was most often Weston McKennie was the guy that was winning the ball back in midfield. And I would argue bossing the game from deep. So many McKennie sort of chips over the top. McKennie turns and sprays the ball. McKennie just robs a Bolivian of the ball every time. This guy was unstoppable last night.
Unstoppable is a word. I think I'm just a little bit less like hyped up than you are because I'm trying to be slightly realistic. I think the reality is they started in a 4-1-4-1. They switched to a 4-2-3-1 in the second half. But I think in that first half, certainly he is the one who's tasked with winning the ball back. He's the one who's tasked with kind of policing the midfield. I think he did a really good job of that. I think a couple times a bit overly aggressive. Yeah. But yeah, I think for the most part he was good.
Let's talk about that because it was slide tackle night in Chester, Pennsylvania. And I think the guy that made it slide tackle night was Weston McKennie, just by going in for some rash tackles, but he often won the ball. Sometimes he had away free kick, got a yellow, but kind of set the tempo for what everybody else was doing. And I think that's the thing I'm most excited about, is that going forward, because Weston McKennie's one of those guys, unlike Sargent and Weah, you could argue McKennie maybe would be part of a senior starting 11, right, given his status at Schalke and his experience. I really think he punches energy into the team that just spreads around everybody, and we'll never have a dull US game again.
Again? Why are you going straight to hyperbole?
I do think he brings that extra something.
I agree. I think you can see just from the outset the way he goes into tackles, not always with the most control, but I think you're absolutely right that he is going to be the one to, if he thinks the U.S. is being a little bit too soft, if they're not approaching the game from the right perspective, it seems like it's going to be Weston McKennie who's the one who gives an opponent a shove, gives him a little bit of a stud to the ankle. Yep. Maybe he just leaves a little bit of a Weston McKennie reminder behind.
Weston McKennie reminder. His prediction is we will see him get sent off for the US in an important game at some point in the next 10 years. I'm going to say in advance of that, it's all worth it.
I mean, and it was worth it because he's the one who goes into tackles and he's the one who earns the corner that leads to the first goal for the US.
Isn't that, so it's Walker Zimmerman with the header. Joe Corona takes the corner, but it is Weston McKennie wins that corner through sheer force of will.
Yeah, I mean, he tries to take on, I think, 2 different Bolivian players, and then I think I didn't love that at first because it was very clear that he wasn't going to be able to get by them. But he did, and that's the thing that I think is very impressive. And he does it by sheer force of will. He fights through, he battles through, and then he puts them under pressure. He gives them like a little bit of a jersey tug, and that's enough to put a defender off, and they just put it out. And that's what it takes.
It's a very grabby way to win a corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe since I've gone a little high, let's go a little low. Christian Pulisic. I think everyone was there to see him, right? It's Pennsylvania. It was an underwhelming performance. He looked like a guy who was using the very last of his gas.
Yeah, I think that's been the narrative, is that he's coming off of a season in which he played a lot of games for Dortmund, has played games for the US. He himself said he's a little bit tired. I would also add, though, that he was kind of tasked with doing a lot of the midfield work himself. That in that 4-1-4-1, he was central. When they switched to a 4-2-3-1, he was the central number 10. And it felt a little bit like he was trying really hard to make some stuff happen. And when you're trying really hard but being very tired or having heavy legs, you're just not going to be quite as sharp as maybe some other players on the field. And I think that definitely showed.
A lot of arms out, frustration. It just looked like a frustrating evening for him, despite the US winning 3-0.
Yeah, it felt like he I mean, you still saw his poise on the ball. You saw him be able to get around 1 and 2 defenders with relative ease.
But then not 3. That was kind of the
or like kind of cutting it back and dropping the ball off, and then sort of not necessarily making it like darting run to the back post that he might make in a game that either is more meaningful or where he's more fresh.
So we expect, pretty confident, that he will not be with the squad when they make the changes to go into the Ireland-France game. So that was probably Christian Pulisic's last game of the season, right? He'll get to either go hang out in Dortmund or maybe hang out with family in Pennsylvania, is my guess, since he's already here.
Those are your guesses? Germany or Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Germany or Pennsylvania.
All right. I feel like a beach somewhere is also likely in his future.
Sorry, I'm a man who doesn't take beach holidays, so it didn't occur to me that people do that.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about the kids. Tim Weah, Josh Sargent. So Weah played on the right in that 4-1-4-1 and later in that 4-2-3-1. So it's a little bit more freedom in the second half. Josh Sargent played lone centre forward, basically. Let's start with, which of them scored first? I don't have the chronology.
Josh Sargent.
Josh Sargent scored first. Okay, let's talk about his hold-up play.
Sure.
His target forward play, and particularly his being the leader of the pressure, if that makes sense. So when Bolivia had the ball, I thought the US did a good job of closing down all the angles. I saw Bolivia looking very frustrated, didn't know where to pass. And I couldn't tell. I kept asking you and people around me last night, is Josh Sargent good at this, at leading the pressure and funneling people in the right direction? Or is it just the rest of the team is good? And then he stands in the way of the keeper, cuts off the angle, keeper tries to chip in, Sargent gets the ball. So does that mistake by the keeper just make Sargent look better at pressure, or did he do something to make that happen?
I mean, things can be two things. I would say it's both. I think in that sequence, Josh Sargent does a very good job of, he basically forces the defender back, then he cuts off that pass so the keeper has to chip. That's good. But it's a horrible chip from the goalkeeper. It's a very, very poorly done. It's reminiscent of a player who's maybe playing in a lower division in Bolivia who is thinking he can get away with that. Maybe he can't.
As well, I would need to rewatch this, but I'm pretty confident instead of trying to chip it over Sargent, the keeper could have just turned to his left and gone out that way.
I think so.
There was an escape hatch and he chose not to use it.
I think so. I'm not sure, because he throws it out to the defender in the first place, then the defender drops it back, and I don't know if that other option wasn't on. He certainly could have kicked it long. That would have been
that's
fine.
always an option too.
But maybe he just got a little bit too cheeky. Maybe he was trying to do the Weston McKennie thing and instill some creativity into the team.
Well, he definitely created a goal.
Yes, he did. Because Sargent then does the lovely bring it out of the air and turn with one touch, and then finishes with his second touch.
Yep, so you can't fault that at all. I would say
maybe his third touch, but no, I don't fault that either way.
So pros and cons from Sargent. Again, this is a teenager. It's the first time he's playing against grown men, I believe, in an official game. He looked lively and sharp. A lot of really quick 1-2s with Tim Weah, a lot of quick ball movement. I still saw him get bodied off the ball a little bit, or maybe more than I usually expect from a US forward. But you've got to kind of give that a pass for youth, right?
I mean, I give it a pass given that he's only been in training. He hasn't really been able to play with the senior team yet at Bremen.
Yep.
Thank you. I always get Bremen and Wolfsburg confused for a moment.
There's no question mark on the end of the team.
Gotcha. But I think the other big point is that he's very young, and so he probably hasn't. This is the first time he's played against grown men, or at least like not U20 men, basically. So I think that can always be a little bit of a wake up. And then I think maybe just being aware that he's leading the line by himself and really, really, really wanting to impress in his debut, I imagine that factors into some of the decisions he made. That said, a lot of his combination play and his link-up play was very good, specifically with Tim Weah.
Yes, I agree. Let's talk Tim Weah.
Sure.
Tim Weah got a goal.
He did.
Tim Weah, son of George, at the back post on the end of an Anthony Robinson cross. But that sort of wasn't weirdly, the goal threat wasn't the main thing for me. If that makes sense. It was the combination threat. He seemed like the most likely to come inside and play quick passes with Sargent, with Pulisic, with Joe Corona.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on that. I thought even when we did see his delivery from wide, it was pretty good. So I think he kind of kept Bolivia on their toes.
80% good.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
80%.
He had a couple of overhit crosses.
I remember one. I think one in the first half. I can't remember any in the second half. But I'll take your word for it to say that still he was the one who I think could deliver crosses from out wide, but could come inside and combine. He did have that one opportunity in the first half where he combined with Josh Sargent, but his shot went right at the goalkeeper. We were right behind that, so we could see that angle pretty clearly. It definitely felt like, I'm going to smash this one, and maybe not, I'm going to place this one to the corner.
It felt like the two chances he's had for PSG, right?
Yeah.
There's been two chances for PSG where he's been in on goal through his own good work or his own good off-the-ball runs, and he's done the same thing, right? He's hit the keeper twice. But again, teenager, gotta just let it work itself out, right?
Yeah, and I mean, especially with the goal that he did score, as you said, it's a cross coming in from Anthony Robinson. It's low. It would have been easy for him to, again, try to like just smash it into the net and maybe miss it, or maybe just get his positioning wrong. Maybe he gets nervous and takes a touch, and then the keeper steals it from him.
None of those
just
things.
A good little instep finish, nice and calm, and then you can see the emotion when he celebrates. Definitely mean a lot to him to score on his debut.
So, all right, sticking on Weah and Sargent, we sort of expect that they won't be included when the roster has a big turnover, because we're going to Ireland and then France on the next two Saturdays.
Yes, we are ending our journey in Philadelphia.
We're not. We'll follow them through the television medium. So I would love to see Sargent and Weah included in once the changes are made for that roster, but it wouldn't be a surprise if they're not, right?
No, I think the rumors we've heard and stuff we've read today said up to 10 changes, which I feel like means 10 changes. So if you're looking at a squad that's fairly small to begin with, I think they probably will not be included on that one.
How about the guy that provided the assist?
Anthony Robinson?
Yes.
I hope he's included. I thought he was really impressive. I mean, they didn't really have much to do in terms of defensive responsibility, that U.S. backline, but I thought he did his defensive job fine, and then getting forward, I think he helped, obviously, with Tim Weah's goal, getting the assist there, but he seemed ready and willing to get into the attack at the right moments, and that was the thing. It wasn't just sort of like a free-for-all, blood in the water, let's all get goals. It was sort of this is my opportunity to get forward, I'm not going to leave my man behind, I'm not going to leave space behind me, but I am going to get involved when the situation calls for it.
I think Adam Bells of Scuffed will have been pleased, because it's exactly the stuff that he's been seeing Anthony Robinson do for Bolton, which is to get involved in the attack, and the thing I liked, willing to run at people. There were a couple of moments where left backs of the past would have maybe looked inside, looked backwards. There were a couple of times where he was like, I'm running out of options here. How about we just dribble at this guy? Yeah. And he would get down the end line and whip across it.
Yeah, he would. Or even there were times when I would see him just make a smart combination 1-2, but then he would feint to the inside and then get down that line real fast, get the ball back, and he's just thrown the defender off. Again, a Bolivian defender from the lower half of their table. But I think, I want to say that he was the most impressive, but I really can't, because I think those three that we've talked about, Sargent, Weah, and then Robinson, I think all three of them were equally impressive in my mind.
Fair enough. I'm still team Weston McKennie.
Yeah, I think my favorite Weston McKennie moment was just... There are many favorite Weston McKennie moments, but they are all just sort of little indicators of what he'll bring to the team from a non-performance standpoint.
Yes.
Stuff like...
I want to talk about this.
Sure. Stuff at the final whistle. It's a minor thing, but... There's a cross into the box. The referee blows for full time. It goes to McKennie. He finishes. The crowd cheers. And he doesn't really celebrate, but he definitely acknowledges the crowd cheering for him scoring a goal after time had already gone. And it just felt like there was a lot of little moments like that where he was sort of could be sort of self-deprecating, or could be funny, or could just kind of like lighten things up in a way that I'm not sure has been the case with teams in the past, and I'm certainly sure would not have happened were there more senior players there.
Don't you think? Yeah, I think that's an important part, because then the kids are free to be themselves.
To be kids.
More so, yeah. You've noticed as well, right, from the social media stuff and from interviews and just footage that we've seen and from watching them interact, it really seems like there's a bunch of kids having fun and forming a long-term, like, lasting relationships, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And the centre of it all seems to be Weston McKennie knowing he's annoying. Being kind of annoying, but knowing he's annoying, and like has this big cheeky grin about it. Yeah, and I think
flicking Tim Weah and squirting a water bottle into Pulisic's ear.
Yeah, all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think,
but we have a team with personality, right? And that's what's great to see.
Yeah, and I do wonder. First of all, yes, because it's just nice to see. Like, when Weah scores and the entire team celebrates, I love to see how teams celebrate. The fact that everybody comes over and everybody's excited and they're all pumped. It's not a thing we've seen from U.S. teams in friendlies lately, for obvious reasons. But I do find myself wondering, like, in the past, I've looked at Christian Pulisic, and like, we talked about this, like in that game in Cuba, where it was like really bad conditions. They clearly didn't want to be there. Yeah. And if you're Pulisic, who plays in front of 80,000 fans, are you really that excited to go play for the U.S. in Cuba? I'm sure you're excited to rep the United States, but I've often wondered, like, do you have that, like, those teammates around you who can also just be like, yeah, this is ridiculous. I also play in front of, 50,000, 60,000 fans. And I think he has that in Weston McKennie, and maybe he'll have that in Timothy Weah. That he's got maybe people that he plays with, peers at that level in the Bundesliga or in Europe.
So contemporaries and peers.
I think so. Yeah, that to me stands out. That like Pulisic, like Weston McKennie did. I forget what it was called, but he put the hand to the face in training, like in a friendly. I think that's what Nick Tatagui said. Yeah. But he did like the step over and just sort of like rub the hand in the face playfully to somebody else. And I think Christian Pulisic.
The only time Eric Palmer Brown got beat this week.
There we go. But I think Christian Pulisic commented on that video. I'll leave off the expletives, but it was basically like, try that when I'm there and I'll smash you. And just little trash talking like that, I like to see off the pitch, because it comes onto it when, like, there was a couple times when Joe Corona would try some stuff and it didn't quite come off, and I looked, like, because he did it once in front of us and he did so many step overs that I think eventually he slipped, and then maybe he had a hamstring tweak, potentially, possibly, face saving. But nobody that I saw, at least, because it happened right in front of us, was angry. Nobody was calling for the ball. Nobody was screaming for it. It was sort of like, oh, he tried that. And it was a little bit of laughter. And again,
that was the evening, right? It was a pressure-off kind of evening, but also the right personalities for a pressure-off kind of evening.
Yes, and I think, again, several grains of salt here, but it felt like a team who were just as comfortable or capable of playing that kind of schoolyard. Like, oh, he tried that step over. It didn't work. Oh, well. As, we're in a game, let's flip that switch. It felt like that sort of a team.
Before we move on to talk coach, I just want to give a shout to Rubio Rubin. So I feel like we haven't mentioned his name. He was absolutely wonderful. I thought every time he had the ball, he had something unexpected for Bolivia, whether it was just like a clever little pass or a drop of the shoulder and a burst down the left. He really surprised them many times. His cutbacks and crosses and passing, I thought, were really incisive and effective. He looked like a guy that was playing at a high level, which he is, in Liga MX, right? And I also kind of enjoyed his defensive pressure. When the US did sort of lock Bolivia in, I thought he was a big part of it, which is an interesting thing to think about when you think he's essentially a centre-forward playing left mid. Yeah. You know what I mean? So he's really bringing that part of the game.
Yeah, I think you could see it a couple different times when the U.S. maybe started to realize, like, oh, we've maybe got this game under control, that you'd start to see players taking other Bolivian players on, or maybe just taking an extra touch. And I did appreciate that in those moments. Rubio Rubin, I think, twice split like 3 defenders to put somebody in. I think he played Timothy Weah in for that opportunity when he gets the shot off. Yes. Or it might have been a Josh Sargent combination, because they did that a lot as well in the first half.
Almost telepathically, right?
Yeah, it's pretty good link up. But I think, Rubio Rubin was another one whose stock increased on the evening.
All right, can we address something there?
Sure.
Our Twitter timeline after the game, we saw a lot of people saying, oh no, does this mean Dave Sarachan's going to get the job full time?
Or does he deserve to get the job?
Or does he deserve to get the job? I still think that's absolutely the wrong conversation. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he knows he's not getting the job. There's an interview with Henry Bushnell in Yahoo where he more or less admits that, some other guy's taking over. after this.
Yeah.
And then on top of that...
We have to wait for the dominoes to fall, something like that.
Yeah. And on top of that, there's the Ernie Stewart as general manager looks like it's going to be announced fairly soon, right? On top of that, yes, this was an enjoyable performance. Like, we definitely felt like we had a good evening out in Chester, Pennsylvania. We saw the future of the US national team. But the standard of opposition means that this is never going to be counted as maybe this is the guy. Right? We did not beat Brazil. We beat Bolivia's B/C/D team.
Yeah. And I would say then to people who are wondering, but like, why not give him a chance? Why not see what he has to offer? I would say we had some conversations with some folks here without naming any names. I would say that there was this idea that like maybe these guys are excited to come in and play for the national team and they're appreciative of the call-up, but we don't know what they're getting out of these training sessions. I don't know if some of these guys are coming in and really like being like, I've never thought about the game like that. I've never learned how to do that. And I think Dave Sarachan, it's not just about him. It's about, if you look at the team, setting up in a 4-1-4-1, then switching to a 4-2-3-1, it doesn't make me feel like he has new innovative ideas and a new innovative approach. It feels like he is doing what he needs to be doing to get the results, to keep things from, bottoming him out completely.
Yeah. So he's not blowing any young minds.
No.
But he is giving them all a chance to play for the US national team. So there might be some level of loyalty or gratefulness to Dave Sarachan, right?
I mean, I think, Bill Hamid at the end of that Henry Bushnell article said, like, it'll suck a little bit. Like, if he... and I don't know how strong that sentiment is, but I still think a lot of people will appreciate what Dave Sarachan did, especially members of this team, but I still think that U.S. soccer is going to look elsewhere. Maybe not that far elsewhere, maybe somewhere in the United States, but I think they're going to want somebody who comes in with a clear system that is different, at least on paper, from what the U.S. has done in the past.
I just kind of hope, this is the weird part, I kind of hope that the clear system that the next coach brings is somewhat similar to what the US has been doing under Sarachan, which is 4-1-4-1/4-3-3, and then applying some pressure to the opposition when they have the ball.
Well, if you want to say that, then why not give it to Dave Sarachan then? If you want a new coach to do it, because see, I disagree, because I think that this still feels like what we would be doing under a couple different coaches, whereas I would like somebody to come in and change it up, and for there to be obvious signs of this coach is doing what this coach wants to do on the field, as opposed to we're going to stick with a 4-2-3-1, we're going to make sure we call this guy in, we're going to make sure we call that guy in. Like, I do like some of the decisions that Dave Sarachan has made. I just don't know how much freedom he'll have going forward, or he would have going forward. So
maybe the ideal scenario is that he obviously doesn't take the job, there's a more experienced head coach takes the job, but we sort of, we pat Dave Sarachan on the back and say, hey, thank you. What you did in these few months when things were kind of weird and terrible was useful. You oversaw Sargent's first goal. You oversaw Tim Weah's first goal. You oversaw McKennie and Adams coming into this team.
There will probably be a think piece written in 2021 about how Dave Sarachan got the ball rolling. Yeah, I think so.
About how it all started with Dave Sarachan. I mean, and it won't be inaccurate if things go... I mean, we're very much plotting out into an optimistic future here, but he can be... We can praise him and thank him, but without saying he should get the job.
Yeah.
Fair. All right. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up this unorthodox Total Soccer show?
No, I think I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed sitting on the floor with you and talking about the USA. Oh, yes. Two things. Alex Bono got the starting goal, played the entire game, but we can't really say... Good. I mean, we can say good job, clean sheet, but I think he maybe had one save and maybe touched the ball twice outside of a couple goal kicks. But the one I did want to focus on was Keaton Parks getting his national team debut as well. He looked just fine.
He did.
And I mean that in the most understated of ways. He made me very, very excited for the future.
Very smooth.
Yeah.
Right? Very smooth and combative.
Yeah, and just with that frame that allows him to look like he's going slow while cruising past other players, but then he also still has... very good technical footwork. He can intercept the ball. He can keep the ball under control. He can play some passes. I think he is very exciting to watch, and we will have to wait and see what he does with Benfica next season if he gets that opportunity.
Sounds good. All right, so next US game is next Saturday against Ireland. Then another one after that, the Saturday after, against France. Both of those games are away. We've already mentioned it a couple of times, but there will be some roster churn. Maybe even by the time you hear this, there should be maybe 10 or so names be replaced on the roster.
Yep.
For us, Taylor, we're going to go get some breakfast.
Yep.
We're going to get the train back to Richmond.
Indeed.
And then, what is it today? It's Tuesday, so by Wednesday...
it's been one of those 48-hour periods.
Yeah. By Wednesday, I think we'll have... or is it Thursday? I can't remember. This week, we will have... our World Cup Group C preview up and at you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Taylor Rockwell, thank you for sharing a room and a microphone with me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again later this week.